As long as the people are crippled by fear, awed by the pomp and rituals of the state, and bamboozled by media organs that act as spokespersons of the state and big pharma, they feel disempowered and largely at the mercy of their rulers. But there is a power of resistance latent in the people that the people themselves almost always underestimate. Citizens often feel helpless in the face of the majestic power of the state. This was especially true during the pandemic, when governments across the world intimidated citizens into submitting to rules and regulations that they didn't see the point of. From rules against having more than 3 guests in one's home, to curfews to protect your health, to vaccine mandates to make sure you took a leaky vaccine before going for a coffee, to rules requiring you to wear a mask until you were seated in the restaurant. Many citizens complied with silly and counterproductive rules simply because they felt helpless to resist them. They felt alone and powerless against the political, media, and scientific establishment, which kept prodding them into compliance with this and that mandate that lacked any convincing scientific or ethical rationale. National and regional governments, supported by a pliant mainstream media, unwilling or unable to question the claims of political and scientific authorities, railroaded citizens into turning their lives upside down and guilted citizens into wearing cheap, ineffective masks to the supermarket while in the peak of health. While the real problems, such as overcrowded hospitals and underdeveloped and suppressed antiviral treatments, remained unaddressed. Many citizens complied with lockdown, mask, and vaccine mandates because they sincerely believed they were helping society cope with the pandemic. Others complied out of raw fear and against their better judgment. Those who did not see the point of masking their healthy children, isolating children in perfectly good health, abandoning elderly relatives to die alone, or vaccinating children at negligible risk from COVID-19, often went along with the dangerous charade because they felt they had no other choice. But a people living under the thumb of a tyrant is, in reality, a sleeping giant in a profound slumber. Political rulers would do well to tiptoe around this giant, lest they wake him up. They try to keep him under their power by drip-feeding him with whatever sleeping pills they can get their hands on, whether paralyzing fear and despair, or naive and infantile faith in technocratic elites. But there is no guarantee that a sleeping giant will sleep forever. When the people's fear begins to lift, when the curtains fall away and we see the state in all its naked humanity, the ice of despair and isolation begins to thaw, and the first rays of hope and fraternity pierce through the clouds. A few brave souls stand up and fight for themselves, and in so doing, they stand up for the rest of us. Their public testimony, often given at great personal cost, serves as a lightning rod for a new wave of public resistance. People who had hitherto been hunkering down at home and hoping to ride out the storm suddenly realize that their own power, when united with the power of others, is far greater than anything they had suspected. The most exquisite irony of all is that it is patronizing and ignorant mainstream journalists and tyrannical figures like Trudeau, Macron, and Biden who, intoxicated with their own power, kick the sleeping giant of the people so hard that they wake it up out of its deep slumber. Let's not forget that a burdensome colonial tax was sufficient to spark the American Revolution. People are waking up all over the world to the fact that their leaders have betrayed them and hung them out to dry, imposing draconian, discriminatory, and socially destructive policies that entirely lacked any sense of measure or proportionality. People increasingly understand that they have been betrayed by their political leaders who are serving an agenda that has more to do with saving face and finding scapegoats, for example, the unvaccinated truckers in Canada, than promoting the health and well-being of all citizens. People are coming to the realization that if they do not take a stand now for themselves and future generations, they may well find themselves living under the yoke of totalitarianism for the foreseeable future. The Freedom Convoy has become a lightning rod for a new international mobilization for freedom, with freedom marches multiplying across the world like an unstoppable virus, from Ottawa to Calgary, from Washington DC to London, from Paris to Brussels to Amsterdam, from Rome to Berlin, from Canberra to Wellington. Well done, Mr Trudeau. You've woken up a sleeping giant. And rest assured, he won't be going back to sleep anytime soon.